Okay, so today we're going to read Miss Krup Cracks Me Up. I think we're going to read chapters 3 and chapters 4. Chapter 1 and 2, the first chapter he was talking about field trips and how he hates field trips because they're so boring, and they find out they're going to a natural history museum. And then chapter 2 talked about weird people, so we just talked about the different weird people he had in his school. So chapter 3 is called the Giganotosaurus. Giganotosaurus. All right. Bingleboo, said our bus driver, Mrs. Cornwall. Limpus Cadoodle. Bingleboo, we all said, as we piled onto the bus. Mrs. Cornwall invented her own secret language. Instead of saying hello and sit down, she says Bingleboo and Limpus Cadoodle. Mrs. Cornwall is not normal. I had to lug my sleeping bag with me because we were going to be spending the whole night in the Natural History Museum. Just what I always wanted to do, sleep next to the boring dead stuff. Our parents had to sign permission forms before we could go. That way, if something dead came back to life and attacked one of us, it would just be too bad. At least I had my Batman sleeping bag. Batman is cool. There were some grown-ups on the bus with us too. Mrs. Daisy and Mr. Mackey and Mr. Docker were all there. Ryan's mom, Mrs. Dole, came along as a chaperone. That's a fancy word. That means a grown-up who hangs around with kids to make sure we don't have any fun. Are we there yet? I asked Mrs. Cornwall. As soon as she started driving. No, AJ, she said. I kept asking Mrs. Cornwall every 5 minutes if we were there yet. Anytime you're in a car or bus, always ask if you're there yet, even if you know perfectly well that you're not there yet. That's the first rule of being a kid. It took 1,100,000 hours to get to the Natural History Museum. Pinkle Berflenobbin, announced Mrs. Cornwall when the bus finally stopped. That means everybody get off the bus, in Mrs. Cornwall's secret language. As soon as we walked into the museum, we heard an announcement. The museum will be closing in 5 minutes. Yay, I shouted, we can go home. That means everybody else has to go home, Arlo, said Andrea. I knew that, I lied. I hate it when Andrea calls me by my real name. In the entrance of the museum, I looked up and saw the most amazing thing in the history of the world. It was a huge dinosaur skeleton that just about filled the whole room. Dinosaurs are cool. Not as cool as penguins, but still cool. Wow, everybody said, which is Mom upside down. It's a Giganotosaurus, said Andrea. He was one of the biggest meat-eating dinosaurs in the world, even bigger than a T-Rex. That's right, Andrea, said Mr. Docker. How did you know that? I read about the Giganotosaurus in my encyclopedia, said Andrea, all proud of herself. He weighed 8 tons. He should have gone to the Weight Watchers, I said. My mom lost 20 pounds that way. Where do you think they got Giganotosaurus? Asked Ryan. They probably went to rent a dinosaur. Michael said, you rent anything. Next to the Giganotosaurus was a big bear that was standing up on its hind legs, and it was about to attack. It was cool and scary. Ryan's mom and the other grown-ups told us to spread out our sleeping bags on the floor underneath the Giganotosaurus. Then they went off to do boring grown-up stuff like drink coffee and talk about the weather. What's up with that? Grown-ups are always drinking coffee and talking about the weather. I tasted coffee once and I thought I was gonna throw up. But if they didn't drink coffee and talk about the weather, I don't know what grown-ups would do all day. They're weird. Speaking of grown-ups, I wrote a poem about my dad. It goes like this. My dad has hair growing out of his nose. If he didn't cut it, it would reach his toes. He also has hair coming out of his ears. I tried to tell him, but he couldn't hear. Why do men grow hair in such strange places? I thought it was weird when it grew on their faces. I unrolled my sleeping bag and right next to Ryan's. Then I turned around and saw The coolest thing in the history of the world. I'm not going to tell you what it was. Okay, I'll tell you. But you have to read the next chapter. So, na 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 boo boo on you. All right, so number 4. Lucky us, we're reading the next chapter, so we get to find out what he saw. Chapter 4 is called Wild Yak Attack. It was a candy machine. We want candy. Everybody started chanting, we want candy. All the grown-ups came running over from wherever they were drinking coffee and talking about the weather. We're not here to eat candy, Mr. Docker told us. We're here to learn about dinosaurs and natural history. I could learn a lot more about dinosaurs and natural history if I had candy, I told him. No. Sheesh, what an old grouch. Mr. Docker probably knows a lot about dinosaurs because they were around when he was a kid. We were all grumbling about the candy when I suddenly noticed something out of the corner of my eye. It was even more amazing than the candy machine. It was a big, brown, hairy animal with horns and a hump on its back. It was standing very still right next to us. What's that? Neil the nude kid asked. I don't know, said Mrs. Daisy. Who doesn't know anything? It's a wild yak, said Andrea. Who knows everything? I learned about it in my encyclopedia. Yaks live in Tibet. That yak wasn't here a minute ago, said Michael. Maybe it just walked over, said Emily. It can't walk over, dumbhead, I said. It's dead. Emily looked like she was going to cry. That girl will cry over anything, any old thing. Hey, I think that wild yak just moved, said Neil, the nude kid. It didn't move, I told him. It's stuffed, just like the bear. But then the yak let out a weird sound. Ah! Yelled all the boys. Eek! Yelled all the girls. I thought it was going to die. Everybody was freaking out. That's when the wild yak threw off its wild yak fur. And do you know what was underneath? A lady. She had glasses, dark hair, and a pointy nose. On her belt was a walkie-talkie and a flashlight. You must be the students from elementary school, said the lady. My name is Miss Krup. I'll be your tour guide this evening. I almost peed my pants, said Ryan. Sorry I scared you, Miss Krup said. I'm just so excited that you came to spend the evening with me in the museum. We're going to have so much fun. Why are you wearing a wild yak fur? Asked Andrea. Well, the wild yak wasn't using it anymore, said Miss Crump, so I thought I would. That Miss Crump lady is weird. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. The museum is now closed, somebody announced. It was a little scary in the dark. Miss Crump turned on her flashlight. We all gathered around her. The museum is a magical place at night, she said as she gave each of us a name tag. I'm going to take you on a journey. We're going to encounter some amazing creatures and see some incredible things. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear the sounds of the jungle in the forest, the desert, the mountains, and the ocean. I don't hear anything, I said. She said, almost, dumbhead, Andrea told me. Well, either you hear something or you don't, I said. You can't almost hear something. I wish I didn't hear you, Arlo. I was going to say something mean to Andrea, but I didn't get the chance because a loud bleep came out of Miss Crump's walkie-talkie, and we all jumped. Miss Crump, a voice said. Tyrannosaurus Rex is missing. I'm on it, Chief, said Miss Crump. Kids, we've got to find Rexy. Are you ready to go on an adventure? Yes, said all the girls. Can we kill it? Asked all the boys. It's already dead, Arlo, said Andrea, rolling her eyes. Tyrannosaurus Rex has been extinct for 60 million years. Your face stinks. I bet Miss Crump was yanking our chain about the missing T-Rex. Dead stuff can't run away. She was just trying to make the boring museum seem interesting. Follow me, she said. All right, so that is it for Chapter 4, and I will see you guys tomorrow for Chapter 5. Bye.